She closed the archive door, but left the bolt untouched, then whispered, "You're not getting away from this case today." The heavy metal door of the sub-basement archive room clicked shut with the finality of a court stamp. Above us, the industrial HVAC vent rattled in a slow, uneven rhythm, pushing warm air over rows of gray steel shelves and cardboard evidence boxes that smelled of paper dust, old toner, and sealed concrete. I stopped with one hand, still on the edge of a banker's box. Beside me in the narrow aisle, Claire Morgan turned toward the door without speaking. She wore a beige blazer closed over a white button-down, the collar buttoned high, the cuffs creased from the hours she had already spent fighting for her name. One corner of her corporate badge had bent where she kept worrying it between two fingers. Her other hand was wrapped around a physical access ledger, like it was the last solid object left in the building. The biometric terminal beside the door went black. I pulled my phone from my pocket. No signal, no emergency bars, nothing. We were 3 levels below the lobby, inside a room built from reinforced concrete and old RF shielding panels left over from when the archive had doubled as a server vault. The room was designed to protect physical records from interference. But right now, it was doing something far more useful to whoever had trapped us. It had cut us off. Claire looked at the terminal, then at the ledger, then at me. The HVAC vent rattled twice overhead. She did not ask whether it was an accident. That should have been my warning that the data ransom we were investigating was never meant to stay digital. 40 minutes earlier, the board had gathered on the 42nd floor behind glass walls and sealed expressions. I had stood at the end of their mahogany table with a tablet full of network diagrams, listening to Marcus Vale, the internal auditor, argue that Claire should be terminated and referred to federal authorities before the 4 o'clock emergency vote. In my line of work, panic usually had a voice on the other end of a phone, a kidnapper, a ransomware broker, a hostile negotiator dragging out silence to make a CEO sweat. This time, panic wore a Navy suit, carried a 70-page dossier, and kept smiling at the woman he was trying to destroy. Highly classified client data had appeared on a dark web auction site at dawn. The posted samples matched files from Claire's department. The digital trail pointed to her credentials, her administrative session, her approved device path. It was too clean, no hurried movements, no corrupted headers, no confused user behavior, just a perfect row of evidence arranged like a showroom display. Marcus called it conclusive. I called it staged. Claire had built the firm's entire data security architecture over 10 years. She knew every access grid, every privileged account, every emergency failover route. If the leak stayed tied to her credentials, she would lose her job, her clearance, and possibly her freedom. The board's counsel had already used the words criminal referral. Marcus wanted the vote by 4 because by 5, legal would have to turn the case over outside the company, and outside scrutiny might find cracks in his tidy story. My first solo retainer depended on keeping the case contained without letting the company bury the truth. Claire's life depended on proving that her credentials were only the costume someone else had worn. The digital logs were locked. My mentor's old rule came back to me as I studied the diagrams. You don't negotiate with a locked door, you find the key. The key had to be physical, Q3 access ledgers, biometric printouts, old hard copy maintenance records. The kind of records nobody bothered to alter because nobody who lived inside screens remembered paper could still bleed. I had asked Claire to take me to the sub-basement archive. Now the archive door had sealed behind us. The terminal is dead, I said. I kept my voice low and even. A crisis negotiator's first job is not to solve the room. It is to keep the room from becoming another opponent. I crossed to the door, leaving space between us in the narrow aisle, and pressed my thumb to the biometric pad. The glass stayed dark. Claire drew in a breath through her nose. It caught once before she flattened it into control. Marcus oversees facility access on weekends, she said. He would have seen the freight elevator request. Then he knew exactly where we went, and exactly how long we had until the board vote. The HVAC vent rattled. A strip of paper on the nearest shelf fluttered, showing a handwritten date from 6 years ago. Claire set the ledger on top of a box and pulled open the first lid. If we don't find the physical access record, she said, he wins. Then we stop treating the door like the problem, I said, and start treating it like a timer. She looked at me for 1 second. There was no helplessness in her expression, only calculation under pressure. Then she dropped to one knee and started opening boxes. The first stack held equipment purchase authorizations. The next held audit disclosures. The next was a dead end of off-site storage receipts and expired vendor contracts. The packing tape on the fourth box split unevenly under Claire's fingernails. One corner of cardboard scraped across her knee. The HVAC vent rattled louder in the pause before she reached for the next stack. "Claire," I said. She did not look up. "If the Q3 ledger isn't here," she said, "they hand me to counsel like a signed confession. May I take the top shelves?" Her hand stopped on the torn tape. She looked up, wary and tired enough to resent the gentleness of the question. "I can lift a box, Nathan." I know. I kept both hands where she could see them. But those top shelves are overloaded, and 30 pounds of paper falling from head height won't help your case. You handle the indexing. I handle the weight. Another second passed. "Fine," she said. "But if you mix my chronology, I will personally haunt your retainer file." That got the smallest laugh out of me. Threat noted. It was not much, but in a sealed room with no signal and a board vote closing in, it was enough air to keep moving. We built a system. I pulled boxes down in order and called out labels. Claire checked date ranges, cross-referenced department codes, and separated anything tied to facility access. The old HVAC vent kept up its uneven rhythm above us, like a tired machine refusing to quit. Every 5 minutes, I marked the time on my legal pad. Every dead end went to the left wall. Every possible lead went between us on the floor. Within half an hour, the aisle looked like a paper storm had passed through. Claire worked fast, but she was exact. Her corporate armor had dust across the sleeves now. A streak of gray marked the side of her thumb. Each time a file failed her, she pressed her thumbnail against the edge of her index finger and then forced her hand flat again, as if even that small sign of frustration had to be audited. I saw it. I did not name it. Naming a person's fear too early is another way of stealing control from them. I lowered another box, November printouts. Her head snapped up. "Biometric or maintenance?" "Label says both." "Put it on the center stack." I did. She opened the lid, pulled out a binder, and flipped to a set of monthly access summaries. The pages were brittle enough to whisper when they turned. "What night was the original breach?" I asked. "November 12th. I checked Marcus's digital copy on my tablet. His report claims your credentials entered the East Data Suite at 2:15 a.m. I was in Boston that night," she said, not looking up. "Keynote panel, hotel access logs, travel receipt, 200 witnesses. Marcus dismissed it because administrative remote access can run from anywhere. But physical presence still matters if the original admin session was activated on site." "Exactly." She scanned the binder and stopped. Not because she had found the answer, because the binder ended in October. The page after October was missing. Claire set the binder down carefully, too carefully. The HVAC vent clicked. Her badge tapped once against the ledger. "Someone pulled November," she said. "Not someone," I said. "Someone who knew where it would hurt." She closed her eyes for one beat and opened them again. "Then we find the duplicate." It was the first time she used "we" without hesitation. The duplicate ledgers were stored in the east wall cabinets. The east wall cabinets were behind 3 rolling shelves that had not been moved in years. The first wheel resisted so hard the handle flexed under my grip. Claire crouched beside the base rail and shone the small light from her keychain across the track. Dust buildup and a bent stop pin. "You know archive shelving mechanics?" "I know every room that protects my systems." She angled the light closer. "Also, I got locked in a campus library once during grad school. Different panic, same bad maintenance. That sounds like a story. It is not a first date story. I wasn't asking for the first date version." Her mouth twitched despite the room. The stop pin was jammed against the track. I opened my briefcase and took out a bent metal staple remover I had carried since my first hostage negotiation, when it had been the only thing thin enough to pry a door latch cover loose. It was not impressive. It was not elegant. It had saved more situations than several tools that looked expensive in a drawer. "You carry a damaged staple remover," Claire said. "I believe in ugly tools with clean results." "That's either a negotiation philosophy or a warning label." "Both." She held the light steady while I worked the bent teeth under the pin. The first attempt failed. The second scraped metal against metal with a squeal that made both of us wince. The third loosened the pin enough for Claire to slide a file tab beneath it. "Now," she said. I pulled. She guided the tab. The pin came free with a sharp snap. The shelving rolled open. Warm air from the vent moved through the gap and lifted a dry thread of dust into the light. Claire coughed once, covered it with the back of her hand, and went straight for the cabinet marked Q3 Duplicate Access. We had less than 2 hours. The cabinet held 12 envelopes, each sealed with reinforced adhesive. Claire took November. Her wrist sagged for half a second before she corrected it. The seal stayed stubbornly closed in her lap. I set the staple remover on top of an open box instead of reaching for the envelope. "Use the left corner," I said. "The adhesive layer is thinner there." She looked at the tool, then at me. "You could do it faster." "I could, but it's your evidence." Her expression changed in a way too small for a boardroom and too large for the room we were in. She took the tool by the bent handle, slid it under the left corner, and opened the envelope in one clean motion. Inside were the biometric printouts for November. "Access point 4, I said. She found the page, 11:42 p.m. I checked Marcus's digital log. His file says 2:15 a.m. Claire looked at the printout for a long breath. Then she placed it on the ledger between us. "The system was altered after the fact. Baseline confirms it." She did not smile. "Not yet." Her hand hovered over the page, then flattened it so the paper would not curl. "We found the key," she said. The electronic lock disengaged. The sound cracked through the room like a judge's gavel. The heavy door opened from the outside. Hallway light spilled across the dusty floor and the spread of physical logs. Marcus Vale stood in the doorway with a corporate security guard behind him. His navy suit looked untouched by the day. His smile looked practiced enough to survive bad weather. "Fascinating place for a meeting," he said. He looked at Claire first. Not at the evidence, not at me. "Claire, HR has been trying to reach you for an hour," Marcus continued. "It seems there has been another data dump on the forum, sent directly from a terminal logged in under your credentials 15 minutes ago." Claire stood, the physical ledger in one hand and the duplicate biometric printout in the other. The HVAC vent rattled behind us. I looked at Marcus. "We have been sealed inside this room for 3 hours. "Sealed?" He widened his eyes with theatrical concern. "The logs show the door functioned perfectly. Perhaps you lost track of time down here?" He handed a sheet to the security guard. The guard stepped forward and offered it to Claire. The board moved the meeting up. Marcus said, "You are officially suspended pending the 4 o'clock vote. Mr. Reed, your contract is concluded. Security will escort you to the lobby." Claire did not take the paper. She looked at me. There are moments in crisis work when the loudest person in the room is not the one holding power. Marcus had the guard, the paperwork, the schedule, and the door. He also had one problem. He had overplayed his hand. We were escorted out of the sub-basement and up to the executive floor annex. The security guard stood outside the glass doors as if a data security VP and a consultant with dusty cuffs might physically storm the board. Marcus gave us 20 minutes before the emergency vote and left with the smooth confidence of a man who believed a locked door had solved his last problem. I set my briefcase on a low glass table and opened it. Claire watched me. "You're packing." "I am repositioning." That sounds like leaving in consultant language. I pulled my tablet, legal pad, and the physical ledger into a single stack. Marcus terminated my contract as an external vendor. If I enter that boardroom without authorization, he can argue interference. I need to draft from the lobby and send the affidavit to the board chair before he seals the vote. You're going to email them while he calls me a criminal in person. I am going to preserve admissibility. Her arms crossed tight, the physical ledger pressed against the sleeve of her closed blazer. "Nathan." I stopped. The way she said my name did not raise volume. It lowered temperature. She walked past me into the executive archive room beside the annex. It was smaller than the sub-basement archive, a narrow legal storage space with 2 steel shelves, a wall safe, and the same kind of industrial HVAC vent rattling above the door. I followed with the ledger in hand. "Claire, you need to take this to the board." She closed the archive door behind us. She left the bolt untouched. That mattered, more than she knew. Then she turned, leaned one hand against the shelf for balance, and then looked straight at me. "You're not getting away from this case today." The words landed harder because the door was not locked. I looked at the manual deadbolt, still open, then back at her. "Claire?" "No." Her voice shook once, then steadied. "Not no to the evidence. No to you hiding behind protocol because it is cleaner for your retainer file." "It is not about my retainer file." "Then ask me." I frowned. She held out the ledger. "You said you don't negotiate with a locked door. You find the key. So find the key that gets you inside that boardroom without handing Marcus an objection. Do not decide from the hallway that I am better off alone." The vent rattled overhead. She was right. That irritated me more than it should have. My flaw, the one I had polished into a professional virtue, was that I knew how to stand at the perimeter. I could build structure, calm a hostage taker, identify leverage, and step out before anyone mistook competence for attachment. It kept my work clean. It also kept my life empty enough that no one could use it against me. Claire was not asking me to break protocol. She was asking me to stop using protocol as a locked door. I set the briefcase on the archive table. "The second leak," I said. "Marcus claimed it was sent at 3:40 p.m. while we were in the shielded archive." "Exactly. No wireless signal, no hardline terminals in that room. A transmission at 3:40 requires an active terminal on the main floors, and access to my credentials, and administrative knowledge of where to route the spoof." I opened my tablet and pulled up the cached network map. There are 4 maintenance closets with hardline access to the internal grid. Which one is closest to Marcus's office? "3rd floor east corridor." "Does it keep badge access locally if the network is under maintenance?" "Yes. Local cache." Her eyes sharpened. "And physical badge reports right to the same facility grid we were digging through." "Do you have authority to designate a technical proxy under vendor bylaws?" "Section 4, she said immediately. "For emergency security disputes." "Then here's the question." I turned the tablet toward her. "Do you want me inside that boardroom as your technical proxy, or do you want me to draft from the lobby while you present alone?" Claire did not hesitate. "Inside," she said, "but I will make the accusation myself." "Good. And you will not soften it because Marcus looks calm." "I do not negotiate with a costume." That got the smallest smile out of her. We had 7 minutes. She gathered the ledger and biometric printouts. I assembled the network map, the time discrepancy, the door disconnect note, and the cached facility diagram into a clean sequence. We rehearsed only the order, not her words. Claire did not need a script. She needed a frame that could not be kicked apart. When we stepped out of the executive archive room, the security guard straightened. Claire did not slow down. "Boardroom A," she said. "Ms. Morgan, you are suspended pending." "Pending a vote," she said, "not silenced before one." The guard glanced at me. I lifted the tablet enough for him to see the emergency technical proxy authorization Claire had signed with her badge credentials. He stepped aside. The boardroom was a theater of polished wood, glass walls, and hostile silence. 7 board members sat around the long table. The CEO, Evelyn Shaw, watched from the center seat with her hands folded in front of her. Marcus stood near the screen, presenting a slide deck labeled Updated Leak Event. When Claire and I entered, every head turned. "Security!" Marcus snapped. "Mr. Reed is unauthorized." Claire walked to the table and placed the Q3 ledger on the polished wood. "Mr. Reed is my designated technical proxy under Section 4 of the vendor bylaws," she said. "I am authorized to bring him into an emergency security dispute involving my credentials." Marcus's jaw tightened. I set my tablet beside the ledger and connected to the screen. "I will keep this brief," Claire said. There was no tremor in her voice now. The same woman who had torn at packing tape with shaking hands had left that version of herself in the basement with the dead door. At dawn, Marcus presented a digital trail claiming my credentials initiated the client data leak. His argument depends on the assumption that the digital logs are complete and unaltered. She opened the ledger to the physical biometric printout. They are not. I projected the first side by side. Marcus's digital log on the left, the physical access printout on the right. Claire tapped the paper, not the screen. The Q3 physical ledger shows that access point 4 recorded an administrative event at 11:42 p.m. on November 12th. Marcus's digital report shows that same event as 2:15 a.m. The digital record was modified after the fact. Marcus smiled thinly. Or the physical ledger is incomplete. It is the duplicate ledger, Claire said. Stored separately, sealed, indexed, retrieved today in the presence of Mr. Reed. Evelyn Shaw leaned forward. And the 340 leak? Claire looked at me. I brought up the network map. The secondary leak occurred while Ms. Morgan and I were inside the sub-basement archive, I said. That room is shielded concrete with old server vault RF panels. It has no active hardline terminals and no wireless transmission path. We both had zero signal. The archive door terminal was disabled externally. Marcus scoffed. Convenient. Very, Claire said. One of the board members looked up sharply. The word had landed exactly where she wanted it. She continued. Because the 340 transmission could not have originated from the archive. It required an active terminal on the main network floors. I projected the packet route. The packet originated from an IP address routed through the third-floor east maintenance closet. I said, Claire placed a second printout on the table. The local badge cache shows Marcus Vance entered that closet at 3:38 p.m. The room went still. Marcus's smile did not vanish all at once. It failed in pieces. Facility checks are part of my role, he said. Then you can explain why your facility check occurred 2 minutes before a leak you attributed to me, Claire said. You can explain why the digital log changed while the physical ledger did not, and you can explain why you disabled the sub-basement door terminal while the only two people who could challenge your report were inside. The CEO turned to Marcus. Mr. Vance? Marcus opened his mouth. For the first time all day, no sound came out. Claire closed the ledger. I built this security architecture, she said. I will cooperate with an outside forensic audit. I will turn over every physical ledger, every duplicate printout, and every local badge cache. But I will not resign. I will not accept a criminal referral based on altered logs. And I will not allow this company to treat the person who compromised its access grid as the person qualified to investigate me. She looked at Marcus one last time. You don't get my badge. No one moved for 3 seconds. Then Evelyn Shaw lifted her phone and called General Counsel. By 5 o'clock, Marcus Vance was escorted out of the building by the same guard who had stood outside the annex. His laptop, company phone, and facility badge were sealed in evidence bags. The board suspended the referral, opened an outside forensic audit, and appointed Claire as interim lead for the breach response. She did not celebrate. She stood at the end of the boardroom table, one hand resting on the physical ledger, while the late sun caught the dust on her sleeve. I packed my tablet into my briefcase. The work was done. That was usually the moment I left before gratitude became complicated. Claire saw the movement. You're packing again. This time the perimeter's secure. And the locked door. I clicked the latch on my briefcase shut. Found the key. The corner of her mouth moved, tired, earned. The board members filtered out. Evelyn Shaw stopped beside us and looked from Claire to me. Mr. Reed, she said, your firm will be hearing from my office. What you did today kept this company from making a catastrophic decision. Ms. Morgan did the hard part. I noticed, Evelyn said. Claire looked away first, but not before I saw the color rise in her face from pride, not panic. Outside the boardroom, she walked with me to the elevator bank. The HVAC vent in the hall clicked on above us, a cleaner, softer hum than the one in the archive. You could stay, she said. I am still an external contractor. That was not what I meant. I looked at the elevator doors because they were safer than her eyes. I know. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. Before the doors closed, Claire held up the bent staple remover I had left on the boardroom table. You forgot your ugly tool. I almost smiled. Keep it, I said. It works on stubborn seals. Does it work on stubborn negotiators? The elevator doors began to slide shut. Only if they are worth the patience. Her answer reached me through the narrowing gap. Then I will be patient. 6 months later, the 42nd floor smelled less like polished fear and more like coffee, paper, and winter coats drying near office heaters. I walked past the security desk with a permanent blue badge clipped to my coat. The company had not renewed my solo retainer. It had created a position for me instead. In-house crisis director, reporting independently to the CEO, assigned to the high-risk threats before they became boardroom disasters. It was a clean role on paper. In practice, it meant I saw Claire Morgan every weekday. I saw her rebuild the access grid from the physical layer up. I saw her require duplicate local logs for every privileged terminal. I saw her make junior analysts present bad news early instead of hiding it until panic made it expensive. I saw her argue with legal, win quietly, and bring printed evidence to meetings because paper had saved her life once and she had no intention of letting anyone forget it. I also saw that she kept the bent staple remover in the top drawer of her desk. I pretended not to notice for 3 months. On a Thursday morning in late winter, I knocked on the open door of her VP suite. "You're late," she said without looking up. 2 minutes. 3. Traffic at the bridge. There is no bridge between your office and mine. There was emotionally. She looked up then, and the smile she tried to hide did more damage to my professionalism than any hostile negotiator ever had. I set a coffee cup on her desk. Black, 1 sugar, double sleeve. I did not announce it. I never had to. She picked it up, took 1 sip, and signed the bottom of a revised access protocol. The document went into a folder marked Hard Copy Failsafe. Then she opened her top drawer. For 1 strange second, I thought she was reaching for the staple remover. Instead, she pulled out a spare key card. The card was metal-backed, unrestricted, and printed with my name. She slid it across the desk. I updated the facility access grids. She said, "No more electronic dead zones. No door can be cut from the outside without creating an immediate physical alert." I picked up the key card. It was heavier than it looked. "This is above my clearance." "I changed your clearance. That required CEO approval." "I got it." "That sounds like you negotiated with a locked door." "No," she said, closing the drawer. "I found the key." The HVAC vent above her desk rattled on, just once, then settled into a low, familiar hum. I looked at the card in my hand. For years, I had treated distance like discipline. Stay at the perimeter, build the structure, leave before anyone could ask what it cost. But the key card sat warm against my palm, and Claire was watching me with the calm of a woman who had learned that safety was not control. It was choice. "I need to tell you something," I said. She leaned back in her chair. "That sounds serious." "It is. I have spent 6 months trying to keep this professional." "How's that going?" "Poorly." Her smile softened. I set the key card on the desk between us, not as a refusal, but as proof that I understood what it meant. "If I take this," I said, "I am not taking it because I want access to the building. I know. I am taking it because I want access to the life that keeps pulling me back to this office." The HVAC vent hummed above us. Somewhere outside her window, the city moved on with all its locked doors and hidden keys. Claire reached across the desk, not for my hand, but for the key card. She turned it once so my name faced up. "Then take it," she said, and stop standing in the hallway. For a while, neither of us moved. The office outside her suite continued in soft, ordinary sounds, a printer waking up, someone laughing too quietly near the assistant's desk, the elevator chiming somewhere down the hall. Nothing dramatic, nothing worthy of an emergency call. After months of breach reports and board briefings, the quiet almost felt suspicious. Claire turned the key card back toward me. "I am not asking you to become easier," she said. That surprised me enough to look at her directly. She tapped the edge of the card with one finger. "I know you need clean exits. I know you count doors before you sit down. I know you keep your briefcase packed even during meetings that are supposed to be lunch. I am not asking you to stop being careful. My throat tightened around an answer I did not have. "What are you asking?" For honesty before distance, her voice stayed calm, but her hand on the desk was not perfectly still. "If you need space, say space. If you need time, say time. But don't call it protocol when it is fear." The HVAC vent rattled once above us. A month ago, I would have made a joke. 3 months ago, I would have looked at the door. 6 months ago, I would have left before she finished the sentence and written a very professional email from a very safe distance. This time, I stayed in the chair. "I can do that," I said. Claire studied me, the way she studied system architecture, not looking for the answer she wanted, but for the weak point that might fail under stress. Then she nodded. "Good, because I already changed your office access, and Evelyn signed it, so if you run now, I will have to file a facilities ticket." "Those are terrible." A laugh broke out of me before I could stop it. It startled us both. Claire smiled, and this time she did not hide it. She opened the top drawer again and set the bent staple remover beside the key card, its crooked metal teeth catching the light. "One key," she said, touching the card. "One ugly tool. That is a strange welcome gift." "It is a practical one." She pushed both objects toward me. "The card gets you through doors. The tool reminds you that not every sealed thing has to be forced open." My thumb brushed the printed edge of my name on the card. I thought of the basement archive, the sealed envelope, her steady hand under the keychain light, the way she had left the bolt untouched when it would have been easier to make me stay. She had not trapped me. She had given me a door and asked whether I was brave enough to walk through it. I slipped the card into my pocket. The end.